Yeah.
Or now it's
Just
fine.
let me know if it is breaking up.
I'll let you know. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So we have quite a few joined that joined already. So we're gonna get started. And the title of this session is TTPs into turning or translating TTPs into actionable countermeasures with Virustotal and Mitre attack. And the whole idea with this is I have a few slides, but I'm not gonna kill you with slides. We're told at the beginning of this gathering, this all-around Defender gathering, that this is all about doing something relaxed and having fun. So I'm just going to share a couple of things. And what I want to share with you is a link to a presentation that has a ton of slides explaining all of this, and to have the link that we have shared with the virtual machine that we're giving away for free. I'm going to be using that virtual machine today to explain how to do this type of threat modeling, how to prioritize your strategy in terms of tactics, techniques, and procedures. And we're going to be using the Mitre attack matrix for that. So that's going to be the first part that I'm going to be having. And then we will ask Vicente to show us, to continue talking about how we can make those TTPs actionable by looking at the information we get in Virustotal. Okay, so that's the idea. Let me share with you, and you're seeing my screen now. These are some of the things we have shared before. So on my GitHub, I have these talks and presentations, and I have these presentation that I have done in the past a little bit as well, but I just modified it. I updated it to make sure that it works with the latest version of Attack Navigator, right? And that's where you can see the introduction, something that I usually say a lot, right? Think red, act blue. What is that? It's thinking as an adversary to be able to be a better defender. And this is a model that not a lot of people is aware of. This is Mitre Cyber Prep. And everybody knows about attack, unless you've been living under a rock for the last few years. Everybody knows what Mitre attack is. But not many people know about this one. This one actually talks about the philosophy of Mitre attack. The philosophy is that you cannot define a defensive strategy unless you know who the adversary is, and not who is as, oh, is it Russia or is it China, but how do they behave? So this is how we define behavior, right? What's the intent, the targeting, the capabilities? What are the characteristics of the adversary? So essentially, what is their goal? What is their motivation? Is it a financial group, for example, that they want to just steal money? They don't care, who is the victim. They just want to steal the money. If you are a company that processes credit cards, you have data that should be protected by PCI, you could be a target. You could be within the scope of this adversary, right? But what are their capabilities? Can they cause harm? Sometimes there might be out there that maybe it's a group of hacktivists that they want to do harm against the type of organization because they're evil, right? They make money selling, I don't know, movies or selling music. Well, they may or may not have the capabilities to do harm. So this is the profiling part. This is knowing the adversary. And it's knowing this that now you find a strategy. For example, how do you organize or set up your security teams, your goals, your policies? Then your security operations. This is your day-to-day SOC, the incidents, the detection, the monitoring, the threat hunting, the forensics. And this is the focus of the class that we, Justin and I, are co-authors of, architecture and engineering, right? The knowledge of the adversary should help you to define what your architecture should look like and to engineer this architecture as well. So that's the idea. And this is the story we're going to be sharing with you today. It's a story of Hack Me Cats, right? Just like, let's make it more fun. Hack Me Cats, it's a group of cats that have stores, and they have online presence, and they also have physical presence. They have retail stores where you can go and buy, of course, organic, right? Because it's healthy cat food, organic food for cats. And people will pay with their credit cards, and all this data, it's going to be processed by them. So, of course, they have something that is interesting for their adversary. And their adversary is going to be a very super scary APT. It's dogs. Yes, financially motivated dogs. I know you knew that this was coming, right? So if you are a defender, what can you do? Well, this is part of what we wanted to do today. We wanted to share things for free with the community. And what we're doing is we're sharing with you a free VM. We use these links, right, to share this on the Discord channel that we've been using this morning, and also on Zoom. You can download that VM from there. You can maybe look at the recording from this talk, but also on this deck that I'm going to share with you, the link right now. Let me actually do this, because I think I didn't do it. I'm sharing this here, and also, yeah, I'm also sharing this on Discord. With this VM, we're going to do the first that we do in Security 530, and it's a lab. We're not probably going to do it all because it will take quite some time, but it's essentially some sort of threat modeling. Now, Mitre attack, it's a very useful model, right? You can use a lot of different things. You can use this for emulating an adversary. So, for example, you say that you want to do more, red teaming, and you want to emulate specific adversary like APT20, APT29. Well, you could go to attack and then learn about that. And I'm going to use the VM here. Yes, by the way, that's the awesome coin that we have in the class. I'll talk more about this in a second. And I'm going to open the wiki. So this is the free version that you're going to get with a couple of labs that we're releasing. We're giving for free today. And lab 1.1 is practical threat modeling with Mitre attack. So these are the objectives, right? As I mentioned before, different things you can do with Mitre attack. But our objective with this one would be to prioritize our defensive strategy. So trying to learn from the adversary, trying to learn what are the relevant threats we should be caring about, and then translating this into something actionable. So here's the story of Hack Me Cats and Fiend Dogs. We have the exercise with hints, no hints, and then the step-by-step instructions. So the first step would be, if you're Hack Me Cats, you want to know who is interested in this type of organization. So let's say you want to search for specific search for bill, but you could search for healthcare. You could search for industrial, finance, anything you want, right? And then what you're going to be seeing is reports of threat actors, threat groups that are interested in the retail sector. Very simple, right? And this is all public information that Mitre collected here. So right away, we can see that this group, let's call it Fin6, right? It could be called by all these different names, but we're going to call it Fin6, Fin7, and Fin8. At the very least, they seem to have compromised point-of-sale systems in hospitality and retail sector for quite some time. So let's pick on a very well-known one that is, very well documented, and we can see the techniques that they used. So these are part of the TTPs, right? The tactic, techniques, and procedures, the particular implementations. And now, as we're going to be seeing in the latest version of attack, we can also see sub techniques, which is another level of abstraction that this framework provides us. So we can see that this attacker used these different techniques and the links to the particular narrative, right, in the threat intelligence reports. Okay, that's great. If we look at, for example, each of these techniques, let's say communications on non-standard ports that could be used for the tactic command role. There's also something else that Mitre gives us, and it's information about what platforms are applicable here. We were talking before, right, Vicente, about asset management, about the importance of knowing what you have. And this is one of the reasons, right? Because attackers may not only attack a Windows box, they may also attack a Linux machine or Mac OS. And very important, the data sources. So if we want to have visibility, if we want to have detection of something like this, what are the data sources we need to um, to tap into. So for example, network flows from the network, but you can also obtain network flows from endpoints. We were talking about EDR before, right? Sysmon, for example, can generate NetFlow-like data as well as commercial EDR solutions. Process monitoring, once again, sysmon or EDR can provide you this type of information as well. So knowing this, now it gives me an idea of these are logs, these are data sources that I need to enable on my environment to be able to have this type of visibility, and then bring them into a SIEM or some other analytical tool, maybe EDR solutions that can provide detection of these behaviors. We can also see specific implementations by different groups and mitigations and references for that. Okay, so let's do something practical. And if we follow the wiki that we're giving you for this exercise, so we're going to go to this lab 1. We say that based on this knowledge, we're going to be using Attack Navigator. So what I'm going to do is to open Navigator now. I'm going to walk you through these steps. Very simple. Some of you may know about this already, but what I have found over the last year that I've been doing this type of demos on practical threat modeling is that most people out there, they're not aware of these tools. So to a comment that Vicente you made before, it's not that much that sometimes defenders, we don't know about the threats. We may know about the threats. It's that maybe we don't know about the tools, easy tools that we can use to make it actionable. So let's start with this. Navigator is a tool that just uses layers, JSON files, and visualizes that data in layers. And we're going to create a new layer. We're going to select the enterprise matrix. Could be other matrices, but we're going to be using the enterprise. And we're going to rename this tab. We're going to call this, we talk about 3 groups, right? Fin 6, 7, and Fin 8. So how do you select the techniques or the TTPs that have been observed by the different threat intelligence reports and associated to Fin 6? We could use this control here. Let's see that. And with this, we can select either threat groups, software. I call these weapons, right? Because these are the weapons that the attackers use, or mitigations. We're going to go to threat groups. We're going to scroll down. See, there's a big list. And I'm going to focus on Fin 6.
So I have a question for you, Ismael.
Yeah, please. Go ahead.
When you're selecting one of these actors, are all the tools or the weapons that this actor is using already selected?
No, they're not selected. So by default, you start with a blank canvas. The matrix it's blank. There's nothing. Well, it's not blank. It's populated with the data from the attack matrix. Nothing is selected. So very good question. What we're doing here now, it's selecting specific cells. I give them a color so I can visualize it, right? But you can also give it a score. So for example, I'm going to give each of these cells that have been highlighted or selected for the Fin 6 group, I'm going to give it a score of 1. Now notice that this view might be different from a view that you have seen from Navigator before techniques. These techniques are actually collapsed. So if we expand them, right, now the matrix is going to kind of explode. But what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to change the view. So you can go to matrix layout to change the view to, all right, so now you can see the technique. For example, for the tactic credential access, we have 14 techniques. The brute force technique has a number of sub-techniques. And Fin 6 has been seen using password cracking. You can right-click over this and view the technique. It will open up a new tab, and you can do the reading, right, and look at the context. But this is very basic, right? But this is a way in which we can focus or prioritize what is that Fin 6 does that might be of interest to me as a retailer, right, as Hack Me Cats. Let's do the same. But now I'm going to create I'm going to go through the same process, but for thin 7. Okay. So very quickly, same thing. Thin 7. See how some of these cells will be highlighted, but it looks clearer if we use a color. And as you can see, I'm trying to stay away from using red or green, because at this point, I don't care. I'm just like highlighting things. I'm going to do the same thing for thin 8. By the way, this tool is online. You can use it. You can also use this privately offline on a Docker container if you want. I'm going to go to thin 8. I'm going to select it, highlight it, another color, and don't forget to assign a score of 1, because we're going to do some analytics with this. Now that we have this, we have thin 8, thin 7, and thin 6. As you can tell, like different techniques. How do I prioritize my defensive strategy based on the knowledge of the adversary? If I am Hack Me Cats, right now there is 177 techniques in the matrix. Each of these techniques, or many of those, with sub-techniques. So this grows exponentially. And if your objective is to cover the entire matrix, first of all, it doesn't make sense. Second, it might not be achievable, right? We're going to talk more about that later on. So this is a prioritization exercise. What we can do is to combine these layers. So we're going to create a layer that overlays the rest of the layers. How do we do that? Very simple. Choose the latest version of attack, Enterprise v8. And then notice that here on the top, see that how we have these A, B, and C, these tags. That's what we're going to be doing. We're going to add A, B, C. And then we're going to create that layer. Very simple. So now what we have is a bunch of cells that have been colored up. So let me do a few things. First of all, let me change the color setup. We're going to have, since we added the 3 layers, we have cells that will have a value of 1, cells value of 2, cells that will have a value of 3, indicating that that technique has been observed across these 3 different threat actors. So I'm going to change the colors and say, if the technique has been observed by 1 threat actor, it's yellow. If it's been observed by 2, it's orange. If it's been observed by 3, it is red. Okay? So now that makes a bit more sense. And right away, I can focus on the things, the techniques that have been observed by these 3 different actors. Let me see. It should be 1, 2, 3. There you go. Now, we're not seeing everything here, so what we should be doing is expanding. Let me see, expand the SAP techniques. I'm going to use the flat layout. And I don't see any reds, so I know what went on. I probably failed to add the scores. The score of 1. This is fin 7. Comment was added as a comment. I should have added this as, let me try this again. See, I only had 2 coffees today. I should have had another one. Actually, let me repeat this quickly. What do you think, Vicente? Does this make sense? Is this something useful?
I wanted to add something in the meantime while you are doing this, which I think is relevant. Because what you are doing basically is combining the 3 layers so we can see what to prioritize, as you said, which is very, very important. Just to keep something in mind is that when we are using the data from Mitre attack, they keep accumulating all these TTPs over time. So for some actors, we will have TTPs starting from 2012 or something like that, which means that eventually, at some point, maybe we will have all the different TTPs for all the different actors. And maybe at some point, we want to know what is relevant today, what is like fresh in terms of attacks. So what we are doing is prioritizing in terms of historical perspective for different actors.
Right. And that's important, right? Because otherwise, as you say, as it starts accumulating things, you're going to miss perspective. And the whole point of all of this is prioritizing. So I'm looking forward to your section where you will be able to show us like how to get information about what's also happening today using Virustotal.
Well, it's an open question, to be honest. This is something that I will not provide a simple solution, but it's something to keep in mind just for us as analysts when doing this part of our job. We need to keep that in mind.
Yep, absolutely. So as you can see here, right, I made a mistake by adding a comment instead of a score, but that way you also saw this feature, this new feature of adding comments. But as you can see here, we have some techniques highlighted in yellow, others in orange, meaning they have a score of 2, and the red ones having a score of 3. Something else you can do is to sort out by score descending. So this one, the red ones to the top, and then you can see what is that you should be focusing on. So if you don't know anything else, as Hack Me Cats, you're a retailer, you have maybe credit card information, anything of interest to these groups, what first thing I'm going to be focusing on? I'm going to be focusing on Spearfish attachments, PowerShell, Windows Command Shell for these specific phases of the attack. Defense evasion, right? Obfuscated files. But as we are going to discuss later on, some of these could be easier to spot. Some of these could be easier to monitor. Others, it could be more difficult. Also, there is a sense of time in this matrix indicated by the attack chain, right? So for example, you're going to try as a defender, try to mitigate the attack, disrupt the attack, block whenever it's possible, as close to the beginning as possible, right? So we are going to try to prioritize the detection of spearfishing attachments, something Vicente is going to show as well, and also visibility of PowerShell or execution, right? So this is one thing you can do. I don't know, we're running out of time, so I'm going to show you.
I want to add something super short. There is something I don't really like, and is that now we have these sub techniques. But if you go back to the layer that you just created, you will see that for spear phishing, for instance, this is shown like a sub technique, along with a spear phishing link and a spear phishing via service. And maybe we are missing that phishing, anyways, is like the main problem. If we like accumulate all the sub techniques, this technique in particular is probably the most relevant in early stages. So it's not being highlighted. Just not to miss that in some cases, maybe we have 3 yellows, just for me to understand what I'm trying to say. But the main technique will be red. And maybe the problem is scripting languages, maybe the problem is phishing by itself, not necessarily that being an attachment. So there's something also to keep in mind, not to get distracted by the fact that now we have all these sub techniques.
Right. Very good point. So let me show you just a couple of other tools. Again, my goal today is not to go through all of these step by step, because you're getting this, right? You can download this for free. You can do this workshop by yourself with all of these step by step instructions on where to click and how to do all of this. I want to show you a couple of tools. First tool, it's called Detect. And we provide this in a Docker container. And I'm going to use this. I'm going to open this terminal here. Right. We drop into the Docker container. It's built in Python. It is a tool written by the guys at Rabobank in Belgium, very well-known bank in Europe. And this tool will help us to do some sort of a more specific threat modeling. You can call this, a purple teaming exercise, a tabletop purple teaming exercise if you want, because what you do with this is to mention what are your data sources. that you have your environment. And then based on that, you can create now visualizations. With these data sources, what is that I will have in my environment? So for example, I can create a YAML file, oh, that's the format, and from scratch start adding data sources one by one. That's going to take me quite some time. So we're not going to do this. Instead of this, we're going to select a YAML file that I have already provided you as part of this lab in this VM. And there's two YAML files here. One that is, let's say, a traditional one. And the other one has more visibility. It's more aligned to what we show in Security 530. So in the first one, it's a very traditional architecture where you don't have a lot of visibility. You see that we have antivirus logs, we have an email gateway, and we have network device logs and web proxy, right? That's it. For each of these data sources, you mentioned if you have only visibility or if you also have detection capabilities. And based on that, you're going to get different results in the matrix. Now, what's the end result of that? I'm going to go to the wiki. I'm going to show you the screenshots, right? I'm not going to do it here live. It will take some time. But just by running these simple commands, you have the commands here. In order to copy the command, just click on this, go to the command line, paste, and you don't have to type anything. So that's pretty awesome. And follow these steps. This will create a JSON file that now you can import into Navigator. And this will tell you those data sources that you have in your environment today. You saw this was just like 4. What is the visibility I will have? And it's graded, right? From minimal visibility to top visibility. As you can tell, in a network-centric architecture, you don't have visibility of a lot of things. You're a lot of things. So you would probably want to also overlay this with the attacker's tactics. Very easy, right? You can just go to Attack Navigator, do the same thing we did before, but now select the 3 groups. They will be highlighted. You can highlight that in another color if you want. And then in this color, you have the data sources for your visibility, the techniques that are matching that. As you can tell, there's lots of gaps, lots of things you're not going to see if you don't have that visibility. So if you follow along this workshop, you're going to be able to use this tool to even import threat intelligence reports. There's a report here from Talos, from Cisco Talos on ransomware that you can use on Navigator to map where you have problems with or gaps with visibility and maybe gaps with detection. In this example that we're providing, even with endpoint logs, you may still have misses, gaps. As you can see, this highlighted in red. So in my perspective, this is very, very, very useful. Finally, I want to show you another tool very briefly. I'm going to give you the link for this one. This tool was created by a buddy of mine, and it's actively maintained by Carlos Diaz, Difference on Twitter, and it's a buddy of mine in McAfee, and he created this tool that helps you to slice and dice the Mitre attack framework. So how so? For example, on the command line, you could say, hey, it's called Mitre Assistant. Give me information about all different techniques and sub-techniques that make the Mitre attack matrix. And now you can zero in into specific things, like, for example, Windows. How do you do that? Well, you change query and select all of the Windows. Just expand this. All of the Windows techniques. There's a lot of things I can show you here. I will give you like a script of things you can play with, but let me show you something interesting. And you can export this to CSV, for example. Let me show you one example that to me it's very interesting. I'm going to search for I'm going to do stats, adversaries. Show me all the adversaries in the Mitre attack matrix. You're going to see all of them. And you're also going to see which techniques or sub-techniques they have associated to it. So that's very interesting because now we can start focusing on, for example, the adversaries that have the most intelligence. Well, that could be interesting, right? APT 28 or 29, we have 26 techniques, 32 sub-techniques. But you can dig even deeper. I could say, show me everything you know about APT 28, and then correlate this with their weapons that they use. This is not easy or straightforward to see if you just look at the Mitre website, but this tool does a very good job at mapping the adversary to the platforms, to the specific tactic, to the specific technique, sub-technique, the data sources, and the malware, right, the weapons, the software that these guys have been using. So all of these are tools that can help you to digest, to focus, to slice and dice your attack matrix. But still, at this point, even if you have a plan, this helps you to have that plan. You want to go deeper, right? And now you probably want to get some additional information on the behaviors, the specific behaviors, the TTPs of this malware. And that's where Vicente is going to show us more about how to do this with Virustotal. All yours.
All right. Thank you. So I will share my screen. And
Let's stop mine.
Yep. Voila.
Yep, I can see it.
All right. So what is the idea here? Now we have all these TTPs we've been discussing. We want to know what we can do with that in terms of making them actionable, because some of them are pretty generic. Some of them are providing us with a little bit more of information. So this is basically what we are trying to do here. Well, I don't think we need to go why we are using TTPs, because we've been discussing that for the last half hour. But IOCs basically can be very easily replaced by attackers. It have a limited value in preventing future attacks. Still, they are valuable for us in order to recreate the attack, in order to start our investigation and start like checking what is similar, creating some rules to monitor this attack for the future and things like that. But these are basically the IOCs we have had all the time, like this list of domains, of hashes and IPs. So what is new in terms of TTPs? What else are TTPs adding for us? How we can make them actionable? Are all of those TTPs really valuable for us as researchers? What can we do with them? The problem is that some of them are too generic, like phishing. They're using phishing. All right. So what else? What can I do with that, right? In some other cases, they are providing some details, but like they are executing this command line, but we don't know if this is being executed manually or is being executed by the malware that they are using. In some cases, it's not clear how this is stated. And in many cases, the TTP is, again, providing no details, no technical details at all, which is making it very hard for us to make this actionable. It's just general knowledge we have about the attacker, right? Like this one example here, when they are creating this task, we don't know if this is being done manually or automatically by the tool, or is under demand by the attacker. So they are like just sending this command through some tool that they are attacking the victim with. So what is the idea? First of all, I was thinking that Palo Alto is Unit 42. They are making a great job in creating these actor profiles where they are like mapping them with the different TTPs. Why I think this is more valuable than attack in some cases, Mitre, is because they are providing first, I will show you, I think it will be easier. What they are doing is providing this in a time frame, so you can see how the attacks are evolving. If you go for any actor like Ulrich, you can check what was going on in the last wave of attacks, but you can also get back in time. So this is solving one of the problems we discussed before, like what is going on now in contrast to what was going on historically. And the second thing is that you can see that for every TTP, there is a small number here, and sometimes it's 0, but sometimes it's 5, 1, 2, 3. What is this? It means if they have inside some specific IOCs that they are associating with this TTP in particular. We have seen in Mitre, with the tool that Ismael was showing at the end, that you can associate the malware that the attackers are using in order to have this TTP in particular. But that's it. You don't have more technical details here. We know that this was like ISM injector or ISM agent, and here we have some hashes, which again is interesting, but it's more or less the same we always had, which means we're having a bunch of hashes, we're having a bunch of networking indicators of compromise. So what we want to do is, all right, let's go through these TTPs and let's select the ones that are providing some indicators, some technical indicators, but let's discard the ones that are hashes, IPs, and domains, not because they are not valuable, but because we already know how to deal with them. We want to explore how we can deal with the new TTPs. What are these new TTPs providing us as analysts, and what we can do with them. So this is what we are trying to do here. We are also discarding the ones that are clearly manually executed by attackers in lateral movement, because basically this is, well, this can be valuable in some environments, like if you want to check in your internal network and you have like very extensive logging, and also the ones that are too generic, like use of port 80 and things like that, is too generic, I think, unless you are correlating this with other TTPs, which in this case can be valuable. So this is the idea. We will go through these Palo Alto actor books and check which TTPs are following our criteria. All right, the result is not very visible. What I created is, like in this attack navigator, a heat map. And I was putting like in green the ones that are not so popular, and then it goes darker. And the darkest one are like, well, they are all of them reddish. I will show you. But it was this registry rank-key startup folder, followed by these code signing certificates. Spear phishing attachment also has a score of 6, and etc., etc. So you see, basically what I was doing is checking from all these actors, from all these different TTPs, selecting the ones that look like interesting for our experiment, and mapping them here in this heat map. So let me show you the results. Basically, we have like different layers where the first one is registry rank keys, followed by code signing certificates, non-standard ports, then followed by spear phishing attachments, a modified registry, followed by PowerShell, Python, and ingress tool transfer. And then we have a bunch of other TTPs. What does it mean? The first thing that comes to my head by seeing this is that many of these TTPs are automatically generated. And we had the value just because it was easy to get this. Let's say I am running the samples in some Sandbox, and the Sandbox is automatically providing me with the TTPs. So it's easy for a Sandbox to see if something was like, if some registry key was created. And then, therefore, we have this value in our TTP, in the playbook. So does it mean this is relevant for us? And here is the question. Is that interesting or not? And this is what we are going to try to figure out. So how to make all of this actionable, indeed. So let's start how we can work with this. And I was obviously using that on Virustotal to try to figure out if this was having any value for us. Let's start with the certificates. So when we are finding some indicator of compromise, it looks like this. So it's like this self-signed digital certificate used to sign the executable purporting to be software from Komodo. And then we have like different data and the certificate serial number. So in my opinion, the most valuable thing to do here is just to go for the serial number. And actually, if we want to translate this into a search in Virustotal, is trivial. We just need to take the serial number, and it will be signature and then the serial number that we want to go for. And actually, we can check it out in Virustotal, and you can see how it looks like.
And Vicente, a question for you. What do you need to, like for those watching us now, they just need like a standard account, right, to be able to do these searches?
Well, this is part of Virustotal Enterprise, which is including the intelligence part. Probably you need, sorry, let me drink because,
That's water, right?
well,
It's not whiskey.
you will never know, eh? But my
Well,
voice is the same, it's water. So if you are researchers and you need like a Virustotal account for intelligence, we can provide for you because we are also helping the community and we are helping researchers. Most of them, you have anyways through your company, but if you don't, just ping me and let me know. We will help you out with this. All right, so this is how it looks like. And here we have some malware signed by this, but this is very direct. So we have this signature, we can simply find the malware that corresponds to the same signature. So this is easily translated into various total searches and is valuable. And it's probably related to what we are looking for because the signature of the malware is pretty unique, well, for the same malware family, I would say. So next we have registry entries. This is interesting because we already saw that this was very popular. We had many malware with registry entries. So some of them are not valuable, like this WinLogon. This will bring us like 20 million results if we look for it in Virustotal. But in some cases, we have some of them that are more interesting. In this case, we have like this environment, user init, NPR, logon script, which is not so popular. Usually we need to clean a bit the query. For instance, we want to limit this to executable files that are like making this, having this behavior. And then we can do things like that, like at least having 2 positive detections from malware, just to discard if there is like some goodware or something. So by doing this search, we find this Sophacy sample. You can see this is Sophacy because it's said here in the number in the name of the malware. You can also check in the different comments from the community. But it's also interesting that from here we see that this is detected by some Java rules. So this is something that we recently add. We have these crowdsourced Java rules from the community. And what you can do is just you can go and search for other files that are found by the same Java rule, which is giving you this pivoting, additional pivoting you can do if you are interested in this actor in particular. So yes, for you to know.
And just one comment there. There's also, I've seen that there's also now a feature that allows you to pull Sigma rules, right, for more like behavioral
Right.
analysis. Yeah, we're big fans of Sigma in the Blue Team curriculum as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We have both Sigma and Java rules, and in this case, we are pivoting through some Java rule, but you can do absolutely the same through Sigma. So it's perfect. And thanks
Right.
for mentioning that. So, well, this case for this registry entry is working well for us to find the malware that it was related to this TTP. In some other cases, the entry itself, I mean, the registry entry is not so interesting. Like this current version run is used by 99% of the malware, well, in the old times, just to survive through boot. But what is put in there is what is interesting. So in this case, we have like this value, this VVS, that is adding to the registry entry. And we can simply go and search for it. In this case, I want to mention something. It's pretty unique, so this is good for us. But usually, if we go to the behavior, so the reason why we are able to do all of this is because we are detonating all the malware in Virustotal. So we have all the logs from the sandboxes. And here we can see actually the same entry that was mentioned in the TTP in the behavior section. One thing that we can do also is once that we identify something that is interesting because of behavior, we can think, well, this is nice, but probably this file name is randomly generated. So one thing we can do is we can search by similarity. And in this case, it's not only similarity of the malware, which we can do. So here is similarity search. We can search for similar files, but also we can search by similar behavior, which is cool because we are searching for something that when detonating looks like the same. And here we find another file that may be related. Honestly speaking, I didn't check myself, but it could be related. So it's another way of continue pivoting. So yeah, raise the entries can be unique enough or can be adding some values. And there is the chance we can find this in the strings of the malware, or that we can find this when it's detonated in the sandbox. So they have some value. Even if they are automatically generated, they are cool. When we go to email, I think this is not that useful in terms of malware addresses that were sending the malware, for instance. Probably they are not being reused or they are compromised. Anyways, it's difficult for us to find this in any database of malware. Subject, maybe a little bit more interesting. The only thing is if we want to translate this into some search, we do type email to make sure we are talking about the same kind of files. But again, we need to be lucky to find something like this. But if it is some kind of massive distribution, it may be that it's relevant for us. And attachment names, basically it's the same, the generic file names, which we will see in a second. The only thing, if you don't know, we have this hack in Virustotal. You can use have execution parents, which means that the malware is being executed. It has some parent that is executing this malware. So it means that it was in a zip file, it was compressed somehow, or it was executed by another malware automatically, or it was part of some email. DLL side loading, well, just was one of the techniques. In this case, we can just, it's pretty generic. We can find some suspicious stuff. This is one example. But this usually is being pretty reused. Once that this is, it's found like some vulnerable executables that can be used to abuse this technique and DLLs. This will be more like a common monitoring rule that we can keep running, but it's not so accurate, in my opinion, to find some TTPs unless they are very unique. But well, we can search, like in this case, if this search in blue is finding 8 malicious samples. The scripts, they are very interesting. In many cases, we have the full script. Again, we find the problem that many times what we are executing is randomly generated. One thing we can do is that many times what they are using anyways is the same command line. And in many cases, all the flags that are being used, all the options, like here with this PowerShell, they repeat themselves. It doesn't mean, again, that is identifying a very particular family unless the execution chain is very specific, but it can help us to create some and deploy some rules, some monitoring rules to find suspicious stuff. Like in this case, we can just go for the flags, and the download the string obviously is changing. So we can add as much as possible, but if we don't find the whole chain, we can go just for the flags, for instance.
And that's a great example of behavior, right? You're not looking at these. That's something that defenders have always like done, right, for many years. Like, oh, give me the IP address or even the domain, or it's not going to be very useful these days.
Right. Usually it's dynamically generated, and maybe you are just finding the fragments. The same with the second one. We can just go for some parts of it and just concatenate this into one search, like create object with W script shell, and then the MSI exec, for instance, with the same flags. And the rest can be random, but anything that we find under this can be suspicious. And file names. So file names can be extracted from anywhere. We talk about attachments. It could be any file name used in any circumstances. They can be random. They necessarily are not malicious by themselves. So this is not very good TTP, but we can add some extra parameters to our search, like type, to define the type of file we are searching for. We can limit in time also, like first submitted. We can put like the number of positives in case that we know that this is being already detected as malicious, and to discard like good files. I was checking like the example below and this batch script, and this is this OneDrive, right? Like mentioned some different times. And I was thinking, what is the best one to select? And what I thought is, all right, I will go for the link because this is going to go into the registry, and probably this will be hard code. So what I did is to include also the number of detections, in this case 3 or more, and also the behavior tag, meaning that I want to find this inside the execution in the sandbox inside of Virustotal. Yeah, it finds also some interesting stuff. But you see, you need always to be polishing a bit to understand how to find something interesting. And in some other cases, it's just straightforward. Like in this case, I found this file, which is, again, super random. And you are like, come on, you will never find this. Surprisingly, I could find at least 3 of them who are exactly the same. They're changing the name a bit, like 1296, 1293, 1292, 1273, but they are basically the same. And actually, you can find here the commonalities. They have like some metadata, like T-Explore 80 antivirus system, which is kind of what? So it was interesting for me to find that they have this in common. Sometimes it's surprising you can find like anything. Well, yes, let me go to some quick conclusions. What I think about all of this. So what I think is that after this small experiment, all the TTPs that we found, all the indicators inside of these TTPs are very sample-centric. Many of them are probably automatically generated, and the criteria, how they are selected for one TTP in particular, is unclear to me. In some cases, the file name, the registry entry maybe is super relevant, maybe something that you are saving time for me because you are saying like, hey, take a look to this registry entry, it's really interesting. In some cases, for me, it's just it detonated in the sandbox and we put it here. And it makes no really sense to take a look into that. So it's saving us some time in some cases, but the criteria is what is not clear. And I think it will be worth to make some effort, like as a security industry, to try to make this more actionable. If we really want to make something out of this and not just have this collection of Pokemon TTPs, and have like all of them for every actor TTP and campaign, right? It's difficult to correlate different TTPs into one search. And actually, this is still unclear because different TTPs that we are providing for some campaigns and actors, how they are related, well, they don't really need to be related. They could be like different artifacts, right? But it would be nice if at some point we figure out, I was trying to think some smart ideas about this. I have some, but I will come back if I figure out some good ones, how to correlate them. Now, in order to make this really interesting and to get some results, we need this massive sandbox execution, which we have in Virustotal, but I understand not everybody has. At the same time, some other data we cannot check. For instance, if it is manually created, like some commands are like manually executed by attackers. We can only have this in case we have it in the logs, right? Then individual IOCs, there are many cases not enough, like what we said about different ports being used. In some cases, this is not enough. It's nice to have maybe some addition, but not all TTPs are directly actionable. And then, well, we discussed about this full matrix, right? If we are mixing campaigns and actors, eventually we will have the full matrix for everyone, right? So, well, that was more or less what I wanted to to show today. But I think what is interesting here is more or less the ideas and the exercise and thinking a little bit about this and how we can improve in the future, but not necessarily like the searches, like directly translated. But let's think about this because we are creating all the CTPs, and the question is what for? How we can really make something out of it is, I think, something to keep growing and discussing.
I like it. Thanks so much, Vicente. And I have personally learned some things from Virustotal that I didn't know, some of his capabilities. But I agree with you. The most important piece is the mindset, right? What do you want with all of this? And I think I see two pieces, right? I think this is very helpful when you find, for example, something in your environment. You want to pivot, right? You want to scope, you want to triage, make sure you understand the scope of that incident. for threat hunting proactively. Is there something that I'm missing that I haven't seen in my environment? But I agree with you on the limitations of, when you look at a sample, well, you don't always see like a stage 2, for example, right? If there's some payload injected in memory, an interpreter running in memory, and the attacker is typing commands, you're not going to see that. And that's why it's very important, I think, also to complement that with the first piece that we showed, trying to understand the motivation of the attacker and the tools they use, and then emulate them through maybe a red teaming, a purple teaming exercise. And then try to have a human driving that behavior and trying to understand, have a better picture of what that could look like.
I fully agree. It's all part of a complex picture, and it's not a simple solution. But I think all of what we were discussing today are important steps to have a better understanding how to use all of this and to make something actionable, not just to see all these metrics with all these colors and in reality not helping us in terms of defend our infrastructure.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Vicente. Thanks to Virustotal as well for sharing your time with us today, and for sharing with the community and being to help the community, as you said before. So thank you so much.
It was our pleasure.
And I think this